Welcome guys to another video here on the ManUnitedDaily YouTube channel. And firstly I want to say that I'm sorry that I haven't been giving you some content of late. It's because I'm not sure where you can still hear in my voice is that I've been having a flu and just knocked me out for basically a whole week, and yeah, just didn't feel energy. My throat was terrible. But anyway, here I am doing a video, and this video is going to be a specials one when I'm going to be talking about the midfield, and it's going to be called Midfield is a Mess. So let's check it out. So in this video, basically, like in the title, I'm going to be talking about our area of concern for most people of Man United, where a lot of fans on Twitter, they rant and rave at my channel and also at the official Man United channel now, about how we lack the penetration and quality needed in central midfield in order to conquer Europe once again. And I myself have to definitely agree with this view, because right now, even in the first pre-season game against Shanghai All-Stars, our play was too predictable, passing side to side, switching flanks, and yes, it probably will work when the wingers are up to speed during the season and whatnot. But again, against such a side, we need to have a third dimension in our play. We can't rely on the wingers to get past the man all the time. And if we do get the ball in the box, it's usually only Welbeck who is capable of getting the end of the ball, because the other midfielders are either small and consequently not very good in the air. And with Welbeck's finishing at the moment and low on confidence, it's it's not the best bet really right now. Obviously Van Persie has already joined up with the squad in Australia, and I know it's only pre-season, but again I think it should enable us to get some decent results under our belt with David Moyes, and like you guys say on Twitter, build up momentum for the new season. And that's probably the most important thing right now in this new era, because David Moyes, like I said, under a massive amount of pressure to succeed at United, so he would want to get off to the best possible start. And if he does become and lose a couple of games here and there, a lot of doubters are sharpening the knives right now, I can tell you now, because already because of the potential losing out of transfer targets, people are sharpening the knives. Like I said, they're ready for the queue basically, and it's only one game in, so it's a bit drastic in that viewpoint. But again, our play is definitely too passive at the moment. And again, I think the sharpness and the passing will come, and with the lack of players right now we have in the touring squad, it's obviously added to that and highlight that kind of like shortcomings in our midfield. Obviously, with the addition of Shinji Kagawa in Japan leg of the tour, it will obviously kind of like fulfill that link or missing link between attack and midfield right now. So Shinji Kagawa probably is our main man to look for when we are wanting to play and add this third dimension. So right now in my midfield, it's very short on high quality players. There's three main contenders really. Obviously Michael Carrick, I think, is probably the only top class player who's a proven performer week in week out, and finally he's getting the recognition he has got in central midfield last season when he at for one of the best players in the PFA, and consequently also got the fans awards at United. So Michael Carrick done very well last year, but again you can't have a one-man midfield. So the other young pretenders are Tom Cleverley, who 2 seasons ago got back on loan from Wigan, looked really terrific, but again injuries kind of like halted his progress. And ever since then, I don't think he's ever reached that height again. Obviously, he has his good games last season as well. Memorably, I think in the first Manchester derby back in December, when he and Michael Carrick and Wayne Rooney worked really well in central midfield, neat passing, 1-2s, and it was really good counter-attacking prowess of the three of them. And Tom Cleverley, again, niggly injury has really halted his progress. He's 24 now. I think Tom Cleverley, if he does kind of like shake off all the niggly injuries and he has one solid season, I think he has the potential to obviously fulfill that central midfield role, because he has done it before in the biggest games. Tom Cleverley, like I said, his progress has stalled, but I don't think you can't become a bad player overnight. It's probably my kind of like reason for backing him still. But again, he has looked quite lethargic and kind of like unimaginative in some games with his kind of like play, where he just again fall into the trap of passing it side to side to side, where we're looking for the penetration ball up front. So either that, you can blame the attacking players as well. But again, Tom Cleverley, I think a lot of fans are still having doubts about Tom Cleverley at the moment. But again, I do believe there is a good player in there, because we've seen it at times. So hopefully, if he stays clear of injury, then he can fill that gap and huge giant hole left by Paul Scholes by his retirement. And then a third contender is obviously Anderson, who I think is very frustrating to watch, because we all recognise the talent that he has in his locker. Obviously, we signed him as an 18-year-old from Porto, I believe, for around £25 million. And, you know, when you look at some of his games in his first couple seasons and his Porto days, you couldn't believe the same player is playing in the red shirt right now. He was really dynamic, full of pace, flair, vision. He still maintained a lot of that quality, but I think Anderson, almost like Tom Cleverley, has fallen trap into kind of like the niggly injuries, where over his time at United, I think he's only completed 7 games over 90 minutes. So that's a horrendous record, really, when you've stayed at the club for around 5-6 years. So Anderson, I think this is probably his last chance to loon. If David Moyes doesn't see any huge improvement in the pre-season, I don't think Anderson's going to stay for much longer. Obviously, I really like Anderson as a person from his Instagram account. You get a flavour, and also like the tour diary that Rio Ferdinand does. You're going to get a flavour of what a likeable character this guy is. But again, he really needs to show that sort of like flamboyant and flair on the pitch, and making his presence count at United, rather than just being a kind of like wasted footballer, bench warmer, if you like, wasting his talent away. So Anderson, he obviously has fitness problems as well. Whether that's to do with the lack of playing time or lack of regular playing time is another reason, but he probably need to maintain his fitness and shape going to the new season. And you never know, Anderson might get a chance to play under David Moyes for more regular occurrences. But again, I think having only three central midfield is probably too thin of numbers, to be honest with you. If one get injured, and God forbid if that one was Michael Carrick, then I don't know what we're going to do, really, because yes, Anderson and Cleverley really promising a couple seasons ago when they were teaming together in the Central Park, but sometimes they do lack that sort of calming assurances. And I think the best way to get experience, obviously, is playing games, but playing at the highest level, week in, week out, they're gonna get found out by top quality players, and then the United fans, or some United fans, should I say, will definitely be doubters and will like criticise them and whatever. But again, I do still believe in Anderson and Cleverley, but again, they need to really show themselves in this pre-season to dominate games and have a ready-made successor to Michael Carrick and Paul Scholes. So that's probably the 3 contenders right now. Let's look at the options that we have at the club at the moment. So the first one I would say is Nick Powell, probably the brightest young talent under 20s in English football right now. But again, his progress has been stunted by injuries in his first season. Nick Powell, he played mainly as a kind of number 10 second striker at Crewe Alexandra, but Sir Alex did confirm that his future did lay in central midfield, and at times Nick Powell played really well in some of the matches he was selected, memorably probably in Turkey against Galatasaray, where he came really close to his first Champions League goal on his debut. So Nick Powell, I think, definitely has potential. Whenever I see him for the under-21, you see he's one of these players who look too good for that sort of level already. So Nick Powell, I think he has a bright future. 19 years of age, quite tall and lanky right now, so his body's probably going to develop in the next few years. I really do think that barring any major injuries, I think he could push for plays and act as almost backup for the three that I said earlier in the video. Obviously, we don't know whether we're going to bring in anyone else, and obviously it comes as a disappointment knowing that Thiago Alcantara has joined Bayern Munich, and that's major loss for everyone. I understand your disappointment because I'm just a United fan just like you guys, and so it's heartbroken to know that we were kind of like so much interest around him, and then last minute bang, he's gone to Bavaria. So huge disappointment. But let's go back to Nick Powell. I think he's very strong actually for his body type, and I think he could be ready if he does get a run in the team, because like I said, the best way to get experience and kind of like know-how in the game is to play the game. And because he's still at a prime age to learn, I think if we do like throw Nick Powell in some games in the Premier League, perhaps at the lower sides, perhaps like newly promoted teams such as Cardiff and that, when they play at Old Trafford, it's probably the perfect bedrock for Nick Powell to be integrated into the first team and experience how to play at the toppest level. Because I think Nick Powell does have a lot of potential, but we can't be afford to kind of like shunt him out because of his age. If you're good enough, then you're old enough. This is what, the philosophy that the club goes by, and I think Nick Powell is good enough. So I think David Moyes hopefully will throw him into some of the games, because I think a lot of United fans want to see how he develops. And again, we all like it because he's obviously English, and I think he has, like I said, bright future in the game, hopefully for a long time at United if he does stay out of injury. So Nick Powell, I think, is a good backup, but I don't think he's ready for the prime time just yet. And then the second option we have is Shinji Kagawa, and even people, knowledgeable people like Paddy Crerand, taken away from Paddy Crerand, I'd really like him, one of the legends of the Reds. And if you do tune into the Paddy Crerand show every Monday night, it's so hilarious to see him talking to the fans, etc. But I think Paddy, I don't think he watched a lot of Bundesliga when Shinji Kagawa played for Dortmund, and he probably mistook when Jurgen Klopp said that Shinji Kagawa is the best central midfield player there is in Europe. And I think because although he did play in central midfield, he wasn't really operating as a conventional central midfielder. I think Paddy was more thinking about the type of midfielders like Paul Scholes and Michael Carrick, who sits a bit deeper and dictate play from the halfway line. But Shinji Kagawa, yes, he's technically a central midfielder from where he plays, but he pushes up more and he links the midfield to the attack. So that is the true number 10. I think it's called Tranquillista. I'm not sure about that pronunciation, because that is the kind of like technical phrase for the number 10 role nowadays. But apparently David Moyes is considering to playing Shinji Kagawa in that number 10 role at the beginning of the season, like Sir Alex did. And what does that leave? Leave Wayne Rooney is another matter. But if Shinji Kagawa does get a run of games in that number 10 role, I think I will be very happy, because we all know the talent he had or he possesses, and he's shown that at his time at Dortmund when he linked play with Lewandowski, Götze, Blachikowski, Grosskreutz. It was mesmerising at times. If you watch any of the videos when Shinji Kagawa played for Dortmund, that the slickness and interchange of play between those sort of players, or mouth-watering at times. And I don't see why we can't have the same sort of slickness, because we all got all the conventional tool, because Lewandowski and Van Persie, very sort of like similar players. Lewandowski perhaps even a bit faster than Van Persie, but technically I think Van Persie is probably a bit more superior in his game right now. We got Nani at Valencia. If Rooney comes back, he could play on the left. Obviously, wouldn't make him happy, but Shinji Kagawa, I think, right now is probably in the driving seat to play at the number 10 role at the moment. But again, I have to disagree with the general consensus at United that Shinji Kagawa is a central midfield player. He's definitely the number 10 or playing on the left-hand side. You never see him at central midfield dictating play, even for Japan. I think Endo is the kind of central midfield dictator for them, and Shinji Kagawa is on the left, pushing in and play that number 10 role at times. So in that regard, Shinji Kagawa, I think he can do a job there, but again, it's not his strongest point, and it's probably not playing into his abilities that well. So those are the two potential candidates, but both are sort of flawed in some ways. But again, if I had to pick one to challenge for one of the three regular first teamers right now, I'd probably say Nick Powell is probably the closest thing, because he's got the high advantage and probably the more powerful than Shinji Kagawa right now. So Nick Powell is probably the only candidate right now ready to make the step up form within our youth ranks. So now let's talk about potential targets that we could get in order to, you know, fill the void left by Paul Scholes. And I said earlier in the video, it comes as a huge disappointment that Thiago has gone to Bayern Munich. But again, there are still some players who are, I think, good enough to fulfill that void. So the first one is a player that I don't think a lot of you guys will kind of like doubt who he is, and it's to do with Kevin Strootman. Obviously, I talked about him exclusively here and extensively as well, and obviously he has been linked for a couple of years now. Good left foot, eye for the ball, almost a box-to-box midfielder. The only reservation I have about him is perhaps to do with his pace, where sometimes he does get caught out because of his, perhaps if he does get into a bad position, he can't really recover well because of due to his lack of pace. But that's probably the only drawback from Kevin Strootman. However, he is expected to go to AS Roma in the next few weeks, because then they are preparing to sell Daniele Rossi to Chelsea. So that is coming as a massive blow if that does happen, because Strootman is probably one of the better under 25 young central midfielders left in the game that is, you know, realistically a target for United. And if he does go to AS Roma, I think it would be a huge loss, and for the price, I think it's probably a good value for money, probably around £18 million as well. So in that regard, I'm not sure whether David Moyes didn't see or saw his flaws at Euros under 21, and, you know, decided that in the Premier League, because of some of the midfielders who are quite dynamic, that Strootman will be found out quite easily. But again, I think Strootman would have been a solid addition to the Reds, and, you know, he is definitely captain material, and so it comes as a disappointment, I guess, that his move to Roma is almost completed. But, you know what, look at a deal for Thiago. We were interested for months, but yeah, in the last minute, Bayern just came in, bang, he's gone to Bayern Munich. So what can you do? And if we can do it to Roma, I think it'll be harsh again, because of the effort they've put in for Strootman to replace Daniele Rossi. But again, I think the deal is not completed, so if we do decide a last minute bid, I think Strootman does prefer the Premier League to any other league in the world. So if we do come on with a good offer, I think Strootman would prefer to go to United, but still a long way off, but he's one of my candidates anyway. And the second one is it's quite a popular shout from a few people on Twitter. And if you can follow me at ManUnitedDaily, you can see all the mentions that this guy's got, and it's Christian Eriksen from Ajax. Eriksen was touted as one of the, you know, best up-and-coming young players in Europe, coming out of Denmark, and you know, his progress has stalled again, like some other midfield players, and he's about 23, I think, 22, 23, and his progress has stalled. I think it's just niggly injuries and lack of form, and perhaps because of his future is kind of like still up in the air in some regards. He hasn't been able to concentrate as much on his football as he wanted. So that in that regard, I think Eriksen, if he does go to a club, secure a big and long contract, then he probably will settle down, focus on his football, and becomes a very good player on his day. Christian Eriksen, I remember when he played against England, absolutely destroyed Jack Wilshere in the centre of the park. So he definitely has the talent, but again, I cannot have my reservation whether he can walk into the United midfield, even if we still have Cleverley and Anderson, because of the kind of like slight build of his. And I don't think he's a central midfield player either. I think he's more of a Shinji Kagawa type or Wayne Rooney type, where they like to link the midfield to attack, and they're not going to be sitting at the centre of the park dictating play. And you guys might say that he could do a box-to-box job, but what if he sprints to the other box and just leaves Michael Carrick on his own? Then it's probably a massive problem if we play him and Shinji Kagawa in the same team and they like to play in the same position. Yes, against a inferior opposition, you know, not talking bad of people like Palace and that I think a 2 number 10 could work in those sort of games where we're going to be dominating possession. But I think against a bigger side, we need a true central midfield player who is going to sit at the central of the midfield, and then dictate play from there alongside Michael Carrick, who perhaps is sitting even deeper than that. So it's an area that I think is quite a problem to kind of like plug right now because of the potential targets getting away from United. But I think the third one is probably the most unrealistic, but probably I think is the best solution, and it's probably Ilkay Gundogan. He is a Dortmund central midfielder who I think everyone who was impressed everyone at last year's Champions League final, where he dictated the play very well for Dortmund against some of the best players in the world, and he done that against Real Madrid and earlier rounds in the Champions League as well. Gundogan, 22 years of age, Borussia Dortmund, so he obviously would know Shinji Kagawa and all that. But again, the only downfall is that obviously he doesn't want to go this season to anyone, so it'll probably take a massive offer, but to get Dortmund to accept the bid. But again, I don't think it would even necessarily mean that Gundogan would move this year to United anyway. So in that regard, it might be a dead fish, but again, I think he's probably the most reliable and closest replacement to Paul Scholes, barring Thiago. A lot of you guys thought, but again, it comes a huge disappointment, like I said, about Thiago. But yeah, Gundogan is still my first choice, but again, I think we might have to wait a year, and by the time we do that, with our current 3 players, I think we are falling behind, or way behind, all the other top 4 contenders in regards to our midfield talent. Because yes, Carrick is a reliable, proven player, but he needs some help in there to provide even more creativity. When we are playing against an inferior team, we can't just be afforded to play side to side. It's too predictable, and even with the talent of Valencia, Nani, Zaha, Ashley Young, Shinji Kagawa, it's very hard to get past 10 men who's sitting behind the ball for 90 minutes. So in that regard, we need an injection of quality into our central midfield players. Those are probably the top 3 targets I have in my mind right now. There are some other kind of unrealistic shouts as well. I guess it's like the most often called is probably about Jack Wilshere. I don't think he will go to United really. He's a out and out Arsenal fan and probably will captain him one day. But you've seen stranger things really. But the kind of like the deciding factor, I think, in regards to the other Arsenal captains, Fabregas, Van Persie, all those sort of players, is that he's English and he probably see him as his future at Arsenal for a long while yet. So all those players are really good. I can't see anyone really from our youth team pushing through that would make an impact straight away in the first team either. So in that regard, it's kind of a gloomy outlook right now. And another thing is that you can't have Phil Jones coming on 70th minute in a match and trying to change the game like we did against Singapore All-Star. We all saw how that panned out. We can't rely on a central midfield defender, to come on and then change the whole outlook of the game. That's not going to be possible. He's not, Duncan Edwards or someone. Yes, he's been compared, but his creativity probably not even on the same level as Tom Cleverley and Anderson, and that's not talking a lot, is it? So in that regard, I think it's David Moyes recognises that we are quite short in central midfield, and I think hopefully he will recognise the situation and produce some results in regards to the fans' concerns in that area. So there you guys have it for another video here on the Man United Daily channel. And obviously, sorry guys for a really long video, but again, I think it's an area that I think a lot of people have a lot of concerns to express, and myself, just like you guys, is a Manchester United fan, and I'm equally concerned about this area of the pitch for us, because I think our defence, goalkeeper, the attack, all solid, and you know, potentially all world class areas, but this central midfield is a concern. And I think look at City last year, when they didn't spend on quality, then they were found out. So hopefully we can address this problem area pretty soon, because then the player can get integrated into the team. If not, then it's going to be a long season ahead for us, I think. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. If you can, please rate, comment below on any of the players I talked about. Who is your perfect replacement for Paul Scholes, and inject that quality needed in central midfield for United. And last of all, please subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Twitter at ManUnitedDaily, or you can visit my website ManUnitedDaily.com. You can also write for the website, sending your article and, you know, blogs, pictures, whatever, to ManUnitedDaily@gmail.com, and then I'll post into the site with the link to your social account as well. So thanks for watching once again, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.